There is a man worth $4.5 million. He still buys the bruised apples. Not because he has to, because his brain never got the update. And here is what that should tell you. The scarcity mindset has nothing to do with your bank account. You could double your income tomorrow, triple it, and the program would still be running. Because that's the cruel irony of it. You work harder, you earn more, you budget better, and you still feel like you're one step from the edge. Not because the money isn't there, because the operating system underneath your decisions was written when you were 8 years old. And nobody told you it was still running. That feeling, that constant background hum of not enough, that is not reality. That is a neurological pattern, one that was built to protect you, and one that is now quietly destroying your financial life. In this video, we are going to look at exactly what scarcity mindset does to your brain, what keeps it in place even when circumstances change, and what behavioral science says it actually takes to break the loop. Not motivation, not affirmations, the mechanism. In 2013, a research team from Princeton and Harvard set out to answer a deceptively simple question. What does financial worry actually cost you, cognitively? Sendhil Mullainathan and Eldar Shafir ran the study. Their finding was precise, specific. Financial worry alone, not poverty itself, just the worry, consumed the equivalent of 13 IQ points. The same cognitive loss as missing a full night of sleep. They called it the bandwidth tax. The scarcity mindset is not just an emotion. It is an active drain on your cognitive capacity. It occupies mental processing power that you cannot get back while it is running. Think about what that means in practice. You spend 20 minutes obsessing over whether to buy the name brand cereal or the store version. It is a difference of €1.40. Meanwhile, your credit card is charging 22% interest on a balance you have carried for 11 months. The brain is working extremely hard on exactly the wrong problem. This is the bandwidth tax at work. Your cognitive resources are finite. When scarcity occupies them, every other decision degrades. Not because you are not intelligent, because intelligence requires available bandwidth, and the scarcity program is using yours as background noise. The same research team identified a second mechanism. They called it cognitive tunneling. When your brain is operating in scarcity mode, it narrows its focus, aggressively. It zeroes in on the immediate threat and filters out everything else. Your long-term goals, your broader financial picture, investment opportunities, they disappear into the periphery, not because you stopped caring, because the tunnel closed around you. And here is the part that should unsettle you. The tunnel activates even when the scarcity is only psychological. You do not need to be broke for it to engage. You just need to feel broke. Which means a person earning €6,000 a month can be running the exact same cognitive program as someone earning $1,800. Different numbers, same tunnel. And this is where the loop becomes self-sealing. The tunnel causes you to avoid financial planning, because planning makes the fear concrete. You avoid negotiating your salary because the scarcity brain reads risk as loss. You avoid investing because investing requires trusting a future your brain does not believe exists. And every one of those avoidances produces actual financial shortfall, which confirms the original fear. The mindset creates the reality, then uses the reality as proof. Behavioral economist Richard Thaler documented one version of this in his research on mental accounting. People in scarcity mode assign different psychological values to identical money. A €10,000 emergency fund feels sacred, untouchable, even while a €5,000 credit card balance charges 18% annually. Mathematically irrational, emotionally completely predictable. The scarcity brain cannot risk the feeling of losing what it has, even when keeping it is costing more. This is what Mentatex is built for. Think deeper, see further. Now we come to the part that most financial content never touches, because it is not about the money, it is about identity. Economists George Akerlof and Rachel Cranton identified something they called identity economics. The principle, human behavior is governed not just by incentives, but by who we believe we are. Our financial decisions are not just transactions, they are acts of identity. If you grew up in scarcity, if careful was survival, then spending freely does not just feel financially risky, it feels like a betrayal. A betrayal of the version of you that learned to be careful, the version that kept the family afloat, the version that made it out. This is why people who escape poverty do not automatically escape the mindset. The external circumstances changed, the internal identity did not. Because the brain does not update the program simply because the threat is gone. The man with $4.5 million still buys the bruised apples, because somewhere in the architecture of his decisions, being careful is still who he is. Not a weakness, a loyalty to a former self who needed it. So what does behavioral science say actually rewires this? Not more income, not affirmations, not willpower. Richard Thaler and Cass Sunstein's research on pre-commitment, what they called nudge theory, points to one answer. Remove the scarcity brain from the decision loop entirely. If you automate your investment contribution, the scarcity program never gets a vote. The decision is made once from a calm, deliberate mind, and then the tunnel cannot reach it. The ancient Greeks had a concept for this. Odysseus had himself tied to the mast before passing the sirens, not because he lacked willpower, because he understood that willpower is not reliable under the conditions the sirens create. The scarcity mindset is your siren. You do not beat it with discipline in the moment. You neutralize it by designing decisions that happen before the moment arrives. And then, separately, more slowly, you address the identity. Not by forcing yourself to feel abundant, by beginning to question whether careful still needs to be your entire self. The program protected you once. Honoring that is not weakness, but running it forever in a life it no longer fits is not loyalty. That is just the old code, still running. Here is what no one wants to admit. The scarcity mindset was never your enemy. It was your brain doing exactly what a good brain does, running a survival program when survival was the point. The tragedy is not that the program was written. The tragedy is that most people never realize they are still running it. They build new income on top of old code. They upgrade the numbers without upgrading the architecture. And the pattern persists, silently, efficiently, invisibly. The first act of financial intelligence is not learning to invest. It is learning to recognize which decisions are actually yours and which ones are still being made by an 8-year-old who was just trying to make it through the week. If this made you think, subscribe. The next video will make you question more.